gentlemen, whenever we see the sun, we find a ray of hope. The sun adorns the sky and is known as the beacon of life. Without the sun, life on Earth would gradually wither and disappear. Today, exploring and researching the sun is one of the top tasks for scientific organizations, especially NASA. Their Parker probe began tracking the sun in 2018 by orbiting it at a safe distance. But recently, NASA made a risky decision to have the spacecraft approach the sun at an extremely close distance. At that time, it was only 6.1 million kilometers from the sun, the closest distance a spacecraft has ever approached the sun. So what happened to the spacecraft during that journey to approach the sun? Was it melted by the scorching heat of the sun? Let's explore together. The sun is the central star of the solar system, with a radius of about 696,340 kilometers, 110 times the radius of Earth. If by magic we placed our planet next to the sun, it would be like placing a marble next to a basketball. As we know, the sun's light and heat are generated from nuclear fusion reactions in its core. Every second, the sun fuses about 600 million tons of hydrogen into 596 million tons of helium and releases about 4 million tons of matter as energy. This energy release process causes the sun to shine, often compared to a giant nuclear fusion reactor in the solar system. But strangely, at the sun's surface, very close to the nuclear fusion reactions, the temperature is only about 5,500 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, in the corona region, visible during total solar eclipses, far from the surface, the temperature reaches millions of degrees Celsius. This has become one of the greatest mysteries about the sun. Scientists have spent centuries researching and exploring the sun, making much progress, but countless mysterious questions remain unanswered. Why is the corona hotter than the sun's surface? How do solar winds and charged particle streams reach supersonic speeds? These challenging questions test humanity's understanding of the closest star in the universe. Since the 1950s, the idea of a solar exploration mission had been kindled. NASA scientists recognized the importance of understanding space weather and that approaching the sun at close range could solve many scientific mysteries. By 1958, the U.S. Space Exploration Committee proposed the idea of a spacecraft entering the sun's outermost atmosphere, the corona region. However, the technology at that time was not advanced enough to realize this ambitious goal. In the following decades, NASA continued to research and develop the necessary technology to build a probe that could withstand the sun's extreme temperatures and intense radiation. It wasn't until the 2000s, with advances in heat-resistant materials, electronics, and engines, that the project gradually became a reality. That is the Parker Solar Probe. The Parker probe weighs about 685 kilograms, compact in size with a height of only about 3 meters, equivalent to the size of a small car. The Parker probe is equipped with 4 main scientific instrument sets, including sensors to measure electric and magnetic fields in the corona region, an imaging system to record dynamic phenomena in the solar wind, instruments to measure the speed, density, and temperature of particles in the solar wind, and devices to measure high-energy particles in the solar environment. However, one of the most critical factors contributing to the mission's success is the successful integration of a heat shield made from carbon composite, capable of withstanding external temperatures up to 1,370 degrees, while maintaining the internal temperature of the spacecraft at about 30 degrees Celsius. This detail helps protect the internal observation equipment and electronics from the extremely harsh environment of the corona, the sun's outermost atmosphere. On August 12, 2018, the Parker probe was launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. using a Delta IV heavy rocket. This was the most powerful rocket at the time, sufficient to place the probe into the proper orbit to approach the Sun. Parker underwent a series of flybys of Venus to use the planet's gravitational force to accelerate and adjust its orbit to approach the Sun. Finally, after multiple gravity assists, it reached its destination and regularly operates around the Sun. NASA expects Parker to operate for about 7 years. And currently, the spacecraft is entering the final phase of its mission. As the mission time is about to end, it is also when Parker realizes big dreams, turning the impossible into possible. What about an expedition that touches the Sun at the closest distance? NASA has planned the closest encounter ever. Despite the risk of the spacecraft being burned to ashes, but as people often say, miracles don't come from magic. Rather, they come from persistence, effort, and the belief that all limits can be broken. Parker was ready to overcome countless challenges. On the exact night of Christmas Eve, December 24, 2024, NASA's Parker Solar Probe carried out its historic mission. That was flying through the Sun's upper atmosphere at the closest distance. At that time, it was only about 6.1 million kilometers from the Sun, closer than 8 times Mercury's orbit. The planet closest to the Sun in the solar system. This is the closest distance a spacecraft has ever approached the Sun today. Despite the tremendous heat, the Parker spacecraft made history when flying closer to the Sun than ever before, surpassing its own previous record. That was in September 2023, when Parker had its closest approach to the Sun. At that time, it was about 7.26 million kilometers from the Sun. But this time it surpassed its own record by over 1 million kilometers. Not only setting the record for flying closest to the Sun, the Parker spacecraft also did it at an incredible speed of about 690,000 kilometers per hour. That is 191 kilometers per second. Fast enough to travel from Tokyo to Washington, D.C. in less than 1 minute. At this speed, Parker also became the fastest spacecraft of all time, breaking the previous record also set by itself, when flying at a speed of 635,266 kilometers per hour in September 2023. When both records were simultaneously broken by Parker was also when people worried about the spacecraft's atmosphere. NASA didn't. Everyone anxiously monitored the spacecraft's signal to determine whether it was still alive or had died. Before the mission was carried out, on December 20, 2024, the signal sent from the spacecraft confirmed the ship was still operating normally. According to the orbital schedule, at exactly 11:53 on December 24, 2024, UTC time was when the spacecraft approached the Sun most closely. However, at that time, the spacecraft couldn't communicate with NASA. Everyone felt worried, no one knew what had happened. NASA engineers predicted that at the moment of closest approach to the Sun, Parker would experience very high temperatures but still below 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to 982 degrees Celsius, while the protective shield was designed to withstand heat up to 1,370 degrees Celsius. Therefore, many NASA scientists believed Parker would overcome the challenge. However, the inability to communicate with the spacecraft at the critical moment worried many scientists. I think that would be the longest minutes, especially for the mission commanders. 1 hour, 10 hours, and 1 day passed without any signals being sent back, making the atmosphere even more tense. But on December 26, 2024, 2 days after the record was made, NASA breathed a sigh of relief when receiving a signal from Parker. It reported that everything was still safe. This expedition touching the Sun was considered an important step in humanity. It was no different from the Apollo 11 mission's landing on the Moon in 1969. Mr. Thomas Zurbuchen, Deputy Director of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, commented, "This is a historic moment. The time when Parker touched the Sun marked a great leap in space science, helping us better understand phenomena important to Earth. Detailed data from this journey will be sent to Earth on the first day of 2025. And it will take considerable time for scientists to evaluate and analyze the results collected by the Parker spacecraft. Nevertheless, I truly appreciate NASA's boldness in accomplishing what no one has done before. Aiming to answer long-standing questions about our universe. From a crazy idea 70 years ago, Parker turned the impossible into possible, opening new scientific horizons. In 2019, the Parker probe first discovered switchback, also known as the reversed magnetic field structure in the solar wind. These switchbacks play a crucial role in explaining the abnormal temperature increase in the solar corona. Additionally, the probe recorded valuable data on the dynamics of high-energy particles and their impact on the solar system, opening new research directions in the field of space weather. Not only providing key insights into the sun's activities, the Parker vision also has significant practical implications. Better understanding of space weather helps protect telecommunication systems, GPS positioning, and Earth's power grids from solar storm events. Especially during the sun's current active cycle, data from the Parker probe can help forecast and mitigate negative impacts on human life. Scientists believe that new data from Parker's recent close approach promises to answer one of the most profound questions about the sun. That is why the temperature of the solar corona is much higher than the sun's surface. According to the plan, Parker will have about 4 more close approaches to the sun by 2025. Let's wait and see how the probe will continue to conquer the sun. Thank you for always following and accompanying Oddity Odyssey. To not miss exciting videos, please subscribe to the Oddity Odyssey channel and turn on the notification. And now, goodbye and see you in the next videos. Best regards, farewell.